Welcome to Team Dinner, the sometimes sports, sometimes food, always Boston show. I am Jack Maloney, and my guest today is Nick Stevens. You may know him as Fitzy from your Twitter timelines, your Instagram, your Facebook, or the corner of the bar somewhere on the South Shore, right? Nick, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
As the bio says, you can always usually either find me in an empty movie theater at the bottom of a pint glass or a Patriots game. Because while I am originally from Braintree, Massachusetts, and have lived in Boston, in Brooklyn, and all over the Northeast, I like to say that Fitzy lives in the heart of Patriots Nation.
That's right. Well,
and it's a damn good place to live. Although rates have been dropping the last couple of years, but that's okay because who had it better?
No.
Than we as Pats fans and Boston sports fans during the double dynastic run of the Brady, Belichick, and Kraft era.
That's a perfect segue to my first question, which is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, how are you handling the transition?
It's fun being a guy now, but eventually one day, wearing heels and a skirt won't be an issue. I mean, I've always been a soft and delicate soul. My mother was more emotionally involved raising me. And it's a brave new world, Jack. It's okay. We don't judge. When you see this facade, when you see this guy who looks like, the Ocean State job lot version of Phil from Modern Family, when you see discount rack Mel Gibson here, judgment-free zone. We don't judge.
Fair.
We're always in it for a good time.
Fair.
The transition. How it's interesting because I feel like, going from the Boston sports world that we grew up in, which was so instrumental, which was played such a heavy, significant part of my youth and development. When we go from the suffering, the whining, the complaining, the fellowship of the miserable, to all, to basically being in the outhouse and then being welcomed to the penthouse. We didn't know how to handle it at first. And then I think just because, like with all things Boston, feeling slightly underappreciated because it is the hub of the universe. And hey, we started this fight. We'll finish this fight for you MFers if you don't like it. I think we just couldn't get enough of it. And because we as, Bostonians, massholes, New Englanders in general, we make everything about ourselves. Mm-hmm. We got so much of it that I can see how during that run where 6 Patriots titles, 4 Red Sox, a Bruins and a Celtics on top of it all during that prime 20 years, we became insufferable. We just became unbearable because we were back where we thought we belonged, which was at the top of the heap. And if you look at it, there really was no other city has had, post-Reconstruction or post-industrial age. I'm sure there was a time being in Rochester, New York was the bee's knees, Jack. Or something else somewhere near a lake when, shit had to get shipped across lakes or, Daddy says we're moving to the tail end of the railroad. We're going to be on top of it all. Boston during that run was it. It was the shit. It still is.
Yeah.
And look at it now, too. Yeah. I kind of almost want to do a long-term study. It's way above my pay grade, as you can tell. But I would love to commission a long-term study. Exactly how much money did Tom Brady and Bill Belichick make Foxborough, Massachusetts, and New England? Because at the tail end of Brady's career, when Belichick was trying for the 19th different time to get rid of him, and he finally got his wish, and then he goes and wins a Super Bowl with Tampa. So I'm told. Yeah. I have no information or knowledge of that whatsoever. He goes and wins that Super Bowl, right? And he's just begging for that Drew Brees level victory lap contract, 2 for 50, 4 for 100. If I were Kraft and the Patriots, full well knowing whatever the hell the salary cap is, I would have just gone to him I would have gone down to Grand Prize Bank, gotten one of those giant Publishers Clearinghouse, Price is Right size checks, and Tommy, here you go. Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Because there truly is no way to quantify exactly how much. Was the seaport before Tom Brady and Bill Belichick? Did towns like Braintree and Dedham become unaffordable before Tom Brady and Bill Belichick? Who the hell wanted to live in Randolph before, who gave a shit about Canton before, Trillium and, craft beer, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
It's truly magnificent. So to answer your question, As you can tell, I get right to the point. I'm a very exacting, specific human. Who's doing the transcript on this? Grace, double your pay. The transition, I'm so fine with it. And I know that's a bad take on the radio. I get yapped at a lot of times, like, why are you such the Foxborough fanboys? Cool with everything the Crafts do again. Oh, he's Mr. Complacent. Like, where's the hot takes? Where's the passion? The passion has been, the passion is in here. The passion has been used. You know, you see fan bases that if they can just get one in a lifetime. How many people that you knew, grew up with, were seminal parts of your life, Jack Maloney, that just begged for one championship? Just, like the Red Sox, they killed my father and now they're coming for me. And we got 12 in a 17-year period. So now all I ask of the Boston sports scene, of the Patriots, the Sox, Celtics, and the Bruins, and hell, come on, you know what? There's plenty of room in the boat. Get in here, Revs. Let's go Free Jacks. I saw some rugby matches last year in Quincy. What a great time. Just make it fun for my kids to watch and become Boston sports fans. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So, I guess to the fan out there that is maybe that old that WEI caller who's just never gonna be happy. Is there one thing you say to that person, or are they you just kind of say, you're over there. There's this kind of new guard maybe of just someone who has like just a little bit of gratitude, right, for the last 20 years. Can you console that miserable guy, your uncle or whoever it is, or is that guy too far gone?
Well, the easy thing to do is to sort of, kind of be a jackass about it and just be like, it's only sports. Get outside, take a walk, go hang out with your family. Just like do something that you pushed off for so long because you were so laser focused on the Sox. Like you kept box score at home, you read the Globe every day, you never missed a column. That's all you talked about at work. But the fact is, like, if you're born and raised, especially in such a sports fan, sports culture, sports heritage rich area like Boston, like people ask me a lot of times, like, how'd you become such a diehard sports fan? Like, well, you can't grow up in Braintree. You can't grow up in the South Shore without being a sports fan. It's everywhere. And even though, I'm no athlete myself, I got a bony up top and I'm built like a Florida avocado on the bottom side. Like I have no balance. I have no athletic ability whatsoever, but I just always love watching sports. Every fan has their own story or journey. For me, it was growing up with, my mom was no diehard sports fan. She was from the South and moved up to the Quincy area with her mom, my grandmother, when she was a kid, and grew up in North Quincy, beauty queen, very dramatic, a debutante. She was looking for like some rugged, handsome Hollywood gentleman like yourself to come in, save the day, and treat her like a queen. What she got was my Irish Greek dad from Dorchester, Georgie Stevens, hotshot, wanted to be a DJ and a movie star his whole life. Didn't, turned into a salesman and a gambler. And so, my parents were royalty, but also just oil and water at the same time. But my dad, larger than life character, always the biggest fish in the smallest pond. He loved sports, couldn't play himself as well, no athletic ability to be found whatsoever, but he absolutely just loved watching games and gambled on games a lot. So games were always on in my house growing up. And I used to always wonder, like, wow, why is my dad so emotional about this Red Sox game on a Tuesday? He must really be like, he really needs Jim Rice to hit a home run in this at bat. Ma, hey, come on in. Dad says this is the biggest at bat of all time. Turns out our family fortune or whatever was our net worth was riding on it. So he and his degenerate friends that he was always hanging out with were my idols growing up. And they taught me about humor in sports and the passion and the commitment, the insanity that goes into it. So from a very early age, I was like committed to all Boston sports. Football was on the most. That's how I became a Patriots fan. And I adopted several other auxiliary teams to watch because the Patriots really sucked for a larger part of my youth as well. But it was always there. And, to the people that just still are that invested in it, even though, they're chasing that elusive dream of like another Super Bowl. I want that. That, like, does it ever get old? Like, can't you let someone else win a championship? No, it doesn't get old. No, that sweet cherry high of like playoffs and championship games and Super Bowls and duck boat parades. Like, it'll never, ever get old. But now that you've had a lot of it, you can, I wouldn't say be laissez-faire or indifferent to it, but you can still be a diehard, committed, loyal fan without losing your mind over it the way you used to.
Yeah.
You know, also now I'm a dad.
Yeah.
When I was 20-something years old, it was a very different game from like in the prime of my midlife, where now it's more about my kids than it is me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was in high school when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, and
Thanks for making me feel old.
Well, you talk to people around here now, they're like, I saw an interview of a guy last night, the Celtics game, talking about how he was only 5 when the Celtics won their first or their last championship.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, how old are you now? 20 years old?
Yeah. When I hear from these kids, like, oh man, I basically grew up and all I saw was like parade after parade after championship after championship. Like, we gotta be careful with the future of Boston, because the entitlement and the spoiled nature of it all is like, we may raise a generation of like insufferable MFers around here.
Yeah,
maybe this is good for us. We need a humbling.
I agree. I have more sympathy, I would say, for like the 70-year-old who had to live 40 years of misery, or 30 or 50 years of misery, and then that person, that their identity was formed before Brady was ever drafted, and now they're just like kind of a miserable. Like, I actually have like sympathy and empathy for that person, much more so than the 21-year-old who's complaining about it. It's like, you don't have anything to complain about.
Yeah.
It's been the best ever for you.
You have people take pesticides out of your food now. There's no more smoking sections in restaurants, kid. Yeah. You're going to live a much longer life. We know what organic food is. You have Wi-Fi. You can go across the country in 5 hours. Come on, knock it off. You have nothing to complain about. You can have a supercomputer that can connect you to anyone in the world in your pocket. But I think, legitimately, a little suffering goes a long way in this life. Like, if you're born into... Let's say you were 4 years old when Vinatieri booms the 48-yarder in Super Bowl 36 and the Patriots shocked the world and beat the Rams. And then all you know for the next 16 and 17 years is greatness. Yeah. It's going to set an unhealthy level of expectations in your own personal life, in your worldview as a sports fan, and potentially for your future going forward, because greatness was always literally just like,
here you go,
served to you on a platter.
Yeah.
It was poured into your vacuum insulated stainless steel cup. Like, it was delivered overnight. Like, the on-demand joy that like the Amazon the Amazon Prime-ification of joy that Tom Brady and David Ortiz and everyone else brought to us may raise such an insufferable generation. Like, we suffered. Like, as a 4 or 5-year-old, my dad would throw me in the car and we'd go sit in Route 1 traffic for 3 hours. I couldn't see the stadium through the windshield because the car was so full of cigarette smoke. So I probably already have coal miner's lung, even though I don't smoke myself. And they sucked. And they would go watch the Oilers. Like, a good day was watching the Pats lose to the Oilers 45-3, and then getting in 3 more hours of traffic on the way home. Yeah. And then Mom's pot roast was the only thing tougher than the tires on the car. Yeah. But you know what? That's all you had, Jack. That's all you knew. And you absolutely loved it. So by the time there were the Celtics of the 80s, like, a breath of fresh air, Larry Bird, our hero. Yeah. The Great White Knight of Indiana, the Hick from French Lick. Oh, amazing. Side note, as someone who's in my midlife, at this particular point, it's, let's take a guy in a Star Wars Hawaiian seriously. I don't really buy jerseys anymore. I buy them for my kids. But I have sworn that the next sports jersey I buy is going to be a Larry Bird Indiana State jersey.
It's a good jersey.
I just like the baby blue, but also like that says like, my kid loves to throw around like, oh, Dad, what's the OG this? What's the OG that? Like a Larry Bird, like a Tom Brady Michigan jersey, that's a jersey to own. A Larry Bird Indiana State, that's a jersey that says, I know my roots, I respect the game, and where goatness, if you will, came from. And then like suffering, it's good because like it makes you appreciate whenever you get something great. Like, would I have loved what happened to the Red Sox had I not been standing outside of a bar after doing a sketch comedy show in 2003 bumming an emergency cigarette off of an anxiety cigarette off of somebody on 7th Avenue in Manhattan, only to then like get it lit and watch Tim Wakefield serve up the dong to Aaron Boone to just crush our soul and stomp out our joy. Would I have found, would I have appreciated all that? Would I have found the pathos in a character / caricature of a Fitzy character had I not gone through the torture of 1986? My mom, funny little story, I was so heartbroken. I was so into the Red Sox as a kid, like most kids were, that when the Sox lost, you remember the Game 7 was supposed to be Sunday. It was rained out, so Game 7 was a Monday night. And Bruce Hurst was pitching, and he was the best pitcher in the series, and everyone was hype, and it was 3-0 through 6. He gave up 3 in the 6th, tied up. They lose. Spoiler alert. I don't know if you caught up, Jack, but I was so crestfallen. I was so heartbroken that my mom let me miss school on Tuesday, and I went back to school on Wednesday with a deep reference here. Welcome back, Cotter, like Epstein's mom style note that said, please excuse Nick from having missed school on Tuesday. He was too sad after the Red Sox lost the World Series. Yeah. How cool is that? My mom gave me a bereavement day for the World Series.
That's love.
That it is.
I would say, she. I mean, I'm sure your dad was probably not taking it well. Hopefully, he didn't have a lot of money.
I had a bet on the Mets. He didn't give a shit.
That's like
he knew better.
Yeah, that's I think your dad. It's the other thing about like the older fan versus the new fan, right? It's like the new fan, things are great. Bets are going in on an app on their phone. Everything. It's like the old bet is like there's problems, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's there's like real stakes, not like oh, you transferred in $25 to your FanDuel account. This is like no, this is a real thing, right?
Yeah,
so,
you can't just pull out your phone if you like have a bet on Team X and Team X is losing. You can't just hedge that bet.
Yeah.
Quickly just by pulling out your phone and doing real-time betting. Like, you would ride or die with that as well.
Yeah.
And you could try to emotionally hedge that bet, but
no shot.
Yeah, no.
It's like
the bill came due real quick.
Yeah. It's like DraftKings. Imagine if DraftKings extended credit and then sent someone around to collect. Right. That would be. It would be a very different world out there, and you probably have not as many kids. Young kids on Instagram talking about their parlays and this or that. You would have a very different life.
Is parlay going to be the word of 2024?
Yeah.
As we sit here in the middle
it's gotta be.
As summer on the horizon, everybody getting, hey, bet $5, put in $5 now with your first bet, $150 in free bets.
Yeah.
On Fan Kings, Draft Duel, whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone's just talking about their parlays, and it's so easy, and it's so fun, and it's so dumb,
It's
and they
so
know
dumb.
that. I mean, like, it's just, 30 years from now, there's probably going to be if I'm killing the potential for a sports book to sponsor the show, I apologize in advance.
Bring it on.
But there's going to be like a Philip Morris or R.J. Reynolds-ification of just like, you willingly knew, sir, that these applications on these telephones were addictive to children.
Right. It's like Camp Lejeune, right?
Right.
You have Camp Lejeune.
I'm so glad a few minutes into this we were able to tie the atrocities of people losing lungs, taking pills, pharmaceutical mutations, and also same-game parlays.
That's right. I have a friend who recently was like, during big hockey NBA guy, right? So winter, not a lot going on here. 10, 15 games across both leagues every night. A lot, right? A lot of games going on. And he's like, yeah, I place a lot of 10-leg parlays for $1 or $2. I was like, okay. I was like, how long? He was like, 1 or 2 every night. All right, so you're betting $1 to $2 to $3 every night. Yeah. And he's like, is that fun? He's like, yeah, I enjoy it. I was like, have you ever won? No. So what are we talking about here? What's do you stay up late enough to watch the West Coast games complete, or would you wake up every morning and check? Oh, I wake up every morning and check. So like what?
So the title of this man's story is called "Primed for Disappointment."
Yes.
And he just wakes up every day. But see what he gets though. So he may be mildly disappointed, but that disappointment is mitigated by that minimalistic investment he's making, a buck or two. But what he gets, and this is why I don't have nearly the problem with that I do. We overregulate things like cannabis to a point where you're not allowed to have it be a sponsor on the radio or in social media. Where I enjoy it, very much so. A little gummy every now and again to help Dad deal with the existential dread and the anxieties of living in a performer's world. It's great. But hey, it's okay though for big alcohol to advertise everywhere. Tobacco used to, obviously. But the one thing I don't mind, if you have discipline, I don't mind just doing a 7-leg $1, 12-leg $2 parlay, because what that gives so many people that night is something to focus on, something to cheer for on a random wintry Tuesday, a little hope, which goes a long way. So in that case, I'm fine with it. But people, thank God it's a process where you just, you can't call that bookie and get a line of credit, and then when you're 5,000 in the hole.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey, Jack, we know you're in there.
The DraftKings enforcers come out.
Yeah. Exactly. So, it's the game has changed in a million different ways. The way we consume sports now, like, remember growing up, also, like, whatever game was on, that was the game that was on.
Yeah.
And maybe if it was a big day, you may have a radio in the kitchen and you have a game, and TV in, the primary, the den or wherever you get the family room. I knew it was always a big day when my dad would go and get the TV from the kitchen, because we were a TV in every house. Like, we were the first. We were the first family that had cable in our neighborhood. We were the first family that had the illegal black box to descramble all the channels. Statute of limitations now, by the way, everyone. Come and get. My mom's been dead for years. You can't get her. She used to buy the illegal black boxes. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, we lived without a lot of rules and regulations, but that it was a big day if there was a Pats and Sox game on at the same time. Pats would get the main TV, and my dad would take the TV from the kitchen and pop it on top of the, have to knock all the dust off of it, and you would see the cigarette outline in the kitchen from where the TV used to be. Like, that's how and that was fun. But now think about it. Like, you can have 3 or 4 different games on your television streaming through your internet-based portal.
Yeah.
And you could also be live betting on your phone, and you could have your laptop set up where you're also streaming a different, like, it's just, and like when you go to sports bars with 100-foot TVs and just like, it's such a different experience. Do you think it makes it better?
No, I don't think so. I mean, sometimes I'll go sit, on a Sunday, right? Let's say the Patriots are playing 4:00 game or whatever it is. You just 1:00, you just got your fantasy game, you got your bets, it's just like, all of a sudden I'll be like, wait, I haven't even looked up at the TV in like 20 minutes. I'm just looking at this stupid thing in my hand. It's like, is that what you liked sports in the first place? No, it's because you liked moving the TV from the kitchen into the living room and watching, 2 games at once that you were invested on. Like, I don't care if, I'm betting on, like, on some days people bet like, the Pirates versus the Nationals. Like, I don't care. But
hey, let's play a fun game now called Who's on the Pirates?
Paul Skeens.
There you go. The guy that actually smoked Ohtani the other night.
That's it. You asked me another one. I won't know.
I have no idea who's on the Nationals. Don't care. But yeah, do you want to? I have. So again, like the difference between, growing up to being a man of a certain age, you just get a little too much of it all, and you realize, like, wait a second, I'm not going to live forever. Yeah. And these games are really important. They're really special, and I want to enjoy it as much as I can as a fan, as much as I can with the fans that I work and perform in front of at Gillette Stadium, with my kids. Jeff Benedict, the fellow who has written so many great sports biographies and also wrote the book The Dynasty and worked on the Dynasty miniseries on Apple. I've had a chance to get to know him over the years at the stadium, and I've interviewed him a bunch of times, and he's a terrific guy. And one time, because I do this pregame talk show at Gillette for the fans up in the Putnam Club, it's 30, 40 minutes. It's just me and a former player or two. And what we do is we just chop it up, just hash out, like, what are the storylines of the day or the week? How's the season going? What do we think about today? This is also a good unfiltered forum for you to share some stories about your playing days, playing with Belichick or Brady, or, then the likes of, like, some older fellas, Steve Nelson, like, what was Steve Grogan like? Tell me about Tony Eason, whatever. And it's a blast. So Jeff was our guest one time, and we talked about the book and the process and everything that he went through in putting together that 560-page compendium of the Dynasty. Yeah. And it was a great session. Good game that day. And I got a text message later that night from him, and he said, what you do, he said, you may not, I'm paraphrasing wildly here, but he said, what you do, you may not realize this, is such an important part of these Sundays for these people. So many of these folks that go to Patriots games, they have regular jobs, they have a grind of a life, and they just want to go on Sunday and cut loose, relax, and enjoy themselves and forget their problems. And you hosting these shows, making them laugh, always there trying to generate extra joy for them and make it even more fun, that's a really important thing. Don't forget that. Like, you make people happy. And, I think, I got that. I've saved that message. I've told my wife about it. I was like, this is maybe the best text message anyone. He just sent it. How magnanimous, too. Just out of the blue. Like, I just want to, I'm a big fan of that. Like, when people just want to go out of their way, more than just holding a door open or, hey, Jack, let me buy this round. Like, do something that's going to make somebody happy, put a smile on their face, and maybe even put a little something in their heart they're going to walk away with. That's how I try to perform, to create, and live my life. Like, I hope that people were happy that I was at the party. Was I a good guest? Did I bring a little joy to your experience? And whenever I have an occasion to pass that sort of like that, pass it forward, that goodness, that sort of emotional generosity, I'm all for it. Like, that's like, once I got that, like, that's the clearest. I don't really even know what I do. I'm 50. I've done 10,000 different things, been on 500 different shows. I still don't really know what I want to do when I grow up. But I know I just love making people happy.
It cut to, I think what you're saying, right, is it cut to, I think sometimes we don't understand why we do the shit that we do, right? And for someone to see you doing something and to call out and like get to the heart of it, right? Is that because like you're an entertainer, right? You everything you do, everything you get up is you're trying to bring joy, you're trying to educate, you're trying to humor, whatever it is. That's what it is, right? And it feels really, really good when someone, especially someone we respect, identifies that thing in us that is maybe we just have our blinders on, right? Because we're so focused on our own, 2 inches in front of our face.
And we're hard on ourselves. Like we're perpetually hard on ourselves. I probably will be, because I think a lot of times that's the nature of what we do. I grew up a chubby kid. I was always awkward, way overweight. I got picked on and bullied a ton, so I ended up with a lot of self-esteem issues. And then once I lost weight and figured out things I wanted to do with my life and started performing, both of my parents were involved in the theater growing up. My dad was a director and a performer. My mom directed and acted, and so I've always, my life has always been, and I went to film school, so my life has always been this big pastiche of film and theater and sports and comedy and nonsense. And, but I basically developed, so between always wanting to, and my parents like never got along and got divorced. So I've always sort of been the jester in the kitchen, trying to like lighten the tension and make mom happy and like make sure dad's okay. And my wife and I have a very good marriage because we talk those things out. Like, let's not leave any money on the table and be sad performers that didn't go for it. Let's always make sure that we present a good face for our kids, because look what it did. For me, it was really tough. I'm always going to be that guy. So I'll always have a want. What is it? It's sort of like I just can't have, like I have suffer from a little please like me-itis because of that. But when you live that way and you're not aware of it, it can be a little jarring when people think like, oh, you're coming on a little strong here. You're like, you talk a lot, big energy, whatever. That may be my nature, but once you become aware of that, then you can sort of like control the energy, and that's, I think, when you find both some success and contentment, which is, finding peace in this line of work is really difficult. So when you can achieve that, like you hold on to that thing just like you do Tom Brady.
I think you're right on the money. I think that part of you, right, that piece of you that I think a lot of people, whether it's nature or nurture, right? There's this thing in your childhood that is just pointing you in a direction, right? And you're saying it's kind of issues at home. Mom's acting one way, dad's acting one way. How do I keep the peace? How do I? And comedy is that for a lot of people, right? Like I think a lot of people who are very funny come from very, very unpleasant beginnings, right? I think, and varying, and or maybe just sort of mundane or whatever it is, right?
There's got to be some. There's got to be
Right.
some pathos. There's
Yes.
got to be some tragedy because there is no true. There's no true calculus or math to it, but they always say comedy equals tragedy over time.
Yeah.
And comedy has to make you feel uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
it's got to come from a place of discomfort in the first.
Absolutely. So then I guess, let's take that. I think that is super interesting, and thank you for sharing that. And I said let's take that, and then let's look at like the early days of Fitzy, right? So I'm imagining in high school you're interested in drama, you're this kind of bug has bitten you already, I imagine. And
once that radioactive spider bites you, Peter Parker, you're going to become a theatrical Spider-Man the rest of your like. There's no turning back.
So you go to Braintree High.
Yep.
And then you went to NYU.
Yep.
Right?
Graduated from Braintree High, class of '92. My big sort of performery breakthrough. My dad at the time was running a dinner theater in Quincy at the old Masonic Temple, right by the Quincy Center T station.
That's a unique thing.
That was great. Oh, it was amazing. When I grew up, they were performing at Company Theater, Priscilla Beach Theater down in Plymouth, and they ran basically the Curtain Call Theater, which was right at the end of our street, up from Weymouth Landing, for years. When my dad didn't get a certain position running the theater, he branched off, started a dinner theater in Brockton that led to Quincy. So there were opportunities to see shows and consume shows. So I was a huge theater fan, and and also diehard movie fan because sad kid would come home from school, eat my feelings and Nutter Butters and Fritos, watch too many cartoons and movies. So movies were always. I still have a soft spot for watching like He-Man and all the cartoons of my youth, and I'll always be a movie fan because they were my best friend for a lot of time, growing up when things were awkward and uncomfortable for chubby little me. I worked at a movie theater in Quincy growing up for a couple years where I made most of my best high school friends, saw every movie under the sun, still can't watch enough movies, and that was my major at school. But how I became somebody who can produce but also performs came from going to film school, but then also senior year I was Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof. Except in Braintree it's like Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof. What a fucking gig. So much fun.
Yeah.
I can look to a couple moments in my life where I was my absolute happiest.
Yeah.
Like the birth of my kids, the first time I came out for my bow on the opening night of Fiddler on the Roof. Meeting my wife, and then riding a duck boat after a Patriots Super Bowl. It's a hell of a list. I just got goosebumps thinking about my list. It's a good list. Maybe also the first time I saw the Death Star blow up too. That was pretty awesome. First movie I ever saw.
Yeah,
that's why.
It's two family, sports, theater, and a movie.
That's me.
That's it. Yeah.
That's literally me. But then I go to school at NYU, and I was not exactly the most international or continental chap going from my life was basically Route 3. It was Braintree to Cape Cod. That's it.
Same.
With a splash of Boston.
Yeah.
So when I went to NYU, I got overwhelmed the first couple of years. I made some great friends, had some really interesting and unique experiences, but it took me so long to game the system or figure out the algorithm of trying to succeed in New York City with just millions of people and so much, just what an awesome experience though, meeting people from, I had never met anyone. I had a Jewish friend growing up in Braintree. I mean, we were all the same color in Braintree. We looked like a freaking Whole Foods parking lot in Hingham. Just all this, now all of a sudden, like I'm in with the world. And it took me a while to meet people that I was on the same wavelength with. And I was thinking at the time, like I wanted to be the next John Hughes. I wanted to go make, rom-coms, buddy coms, teen romps, etc. The great stuff that we loved from the 80s and 90s. But then I met some friends and we started doing sketch comedy at the same time because I was a huge SNL fan, and most of my favorite actors and comedies came from, Caddyshack, Blues Brothers, the movies I watched growing up. They were all either stand-ups or SNL people.
Yeah.
So then I spent my 20s waffling around doing stand-up and sketch and improv and open mics, picking up PA work on the side, working on some small films and TV shows, but just one of those people floundering, looking for, spent a lot of time in LA. I did the same in New York.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who I was in a sketch troupe with for years. That troupe dissolved because a few friends moved to LA to pursue their writer's dreams, and one of them now is doing extremely well. He's the head writer on the show Grimsburg on Fox, and he was our head writer. And when we lost him, like, our sketch troupe was just dunzo. Yeah. So he said, "Hey, why don't we let's start a variety show? Like, let's bring back the variety show. Like, every week, let's just you and me get some friends together, and we'll do a little stand-up, we'll do a little sketch, we'll do some improv, and then we'll just bring some funny friends on to do guest spots." And we did that for 6.5 years, and that was the pivot point for me, because suggesting that idea of, we'll just make it our own and the audience will come to us and they'll tell us if they like us or not. Yeah. Which is basically, now what TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube truly are. Yeah. You'll get your audience, they'll tell you. Yeah. Like, they'll be brutally honest at times, even, too mean for all of our own goods. But, you'll find your audience. Yeah. And I couldn't really find, like, we'd do some funny bits, but I hadn't really, I hadn't locked in on something that felt true to myself yet, where I was using all of my different tools in a very empty toolbox. And a buddy of mine at the time, a comedian that I used to see around New York City a lot, I think he's on Fox News now, Tom Shalhoub does I think Red Eye or the Overnight Show. He said, the thing is, remember we were talking stand-up one time, and he said, the thing is, you need a POV, Nick. Like, what is your POV? You can't just get up on stage and just tell a bunch of jokes or just ramble through some stories. People want to know, are you an observational comedian? Are you a funny dad? Yeah. Are you political? What is your, you need an angle. What is your POV? And I never understood that. Yeah. And so this idea came to me once, I know, what if, so I'll take my love of pop culture, my knowledge, my sports, but I'll funnel it through the mouth. And this was just as Boston was becoming a thing. Good Will Hunting had come out and won a bunch of Oscars. Seemed like people were really kind of getting it. Mass Holia was becoming embraced, as opposed to now being reviled by America because they had too much of us. And I thought, how about I know what I'll do. I'll go up on stage and I'll do movie reviews, but they'll be sports influenced. I'll be the foul-mouthed guy that always sat behind you in right field at Fenway and never stopped talking the whole game. And you'd be like, God, is this guy going to shut the fuck up? Actually, most of what he's saying is pretty funny, actually. I was the guy, if you were a dad now bringing your kid to a game, half the time you'd be doing earmuffs. Yeah. But instead of saying, sir, would you mind? You'd be doing earmuffs because you're loving what he's saying behind you, because it's all true and it's R-rated. Yeah. And then I thought, okay, I got to give him a name. Well, in every bar in Boston, if you walk in and you say, hey, Sully, hey, Murph, hey, Fitzy, 15 people are going to turn around to you. Hey, someone's going to be like, what's up? Hey, yeah, shut up. So I just picked Fitzy.
I love it.
Yeah, and so that's how I started it. And I did that for years as one of my primary components, and it did very well. And then I got picked up for some syndicated radio work, and it was nice. And doing those spots at different shows got me a talent agent. Yeah. It got me a voiceover agent, which became a primary source of income for me. And it was generating opportunity after opportunity, but it only got so far. And then when my best friend from NYU said, hey, I was just reading this New York Times article about this website, YouTube. Yeah. Google just bought them for a lot of money, and I think this is going to be a thing. Let's take your Fitzy character from your variety show, and once a week, I'm just going to come over. I'm going to film. You can write a script, or you can just rant for 15 minutes, and I'll chop it up into a 3-minute thing, and we'll just see if people like it. And within 3 months, by the time the Patriots playoffs came around, and I wove a couple Brady jokes in, people were like, I know this guy. Yeah. This is that guy. He's him. He's that guy. And it just took off.
Oh, that's great. That is great. So 6 years live. Mm-hmm. What an opportunity to refine it, right? I think now there's such a, for better or worse, probably for worse, right? Is that everyone's just go. Make it work fast, right? And I think that I'm sure at the time, maybe not always, you maybe not seeing the forest through the trees, but that has to be the time to refine the character, the point of view that you're talking about, to see live feedback in person, right? You don't get that when you post a video on the internet, right? I mean, you get comments maybe and likes, but it's a different kind of feel. to have that time to workshop, like it must have, I can only imagine that has kind of paid dividends, even still to this day.
Oh, I so much prefer. There are different kinds of hits that you feel. Like there are different sort of like serotonin releases or dopamine hits you get from when something goes over well. Like say you make a film and it screens and you sit in the back of the audience, like this has been a long, exhaustive process. So the audience really appreciating the film feels great, but there's also like a sense of relief, like this was worth it. It's great. Then there's that quick, nice hit you get when you make a funny little IG video or like spend a couple of days working on a YouTube video, and then you see the like button, like bing, bing, like every time that hits, you're like, oh, that feels good. Oh, that feels good. Oh, it's good. Like it's like the buzz that you like. That to me is like as a craft beer drinker, that's like when you get to that second sip of a good double IPA and that first little bit of buzz washes over, you're like, oh, that's nice. That's good. And that's a temporary high, but it's still gratifying. But to me, there is nothing like the absolute, like, just right there in the vein of performing live. Yeah. When you're, live in front of 50 people, 500, and you say something that like you feel good about it coming out, and then you see the reaction and the response, it's the absolute best. I mean, that's, right behind making sure once I, shove the kids off to sea and say, bon voyage and fare thee well. I hope I did you well, boys. Make sure you pay Dad's wheelchair bill one day. Like that's what I'll always be chasing. Just, God, it's the best. There's nothing like live. Nothing like it.
And today is your live kind of entertainment, is it mostly stand up for you now? What are you scratching that itch today?
I try to as often as I can. Yeah. I mean, this could what's also great about like doing this, like, hopefully people will take this in, and they'll watch it on YouTube, and hopefully it'll be entertaining and comforting for them. Like, oh, this is a fun conversation between some dudes. Yeah. But for me, we could have easily done this on Zoom. This could be a podcast. Right. I mean, we've done a million. We've all done a million of those, but
it's not the same, right?
Yeah. No, sitting here with like having the date slices of the wall, like I know, eating sandwiches, chilling, having a coffee, talking to a real person. I much prefer. Post-COVID, everyone's content to sit at home in their super expensive sweatpants that they also double as, suit pants and, just kind of do their own thing. Like, I want to be out with people.
I agree.
So I do stand up as often as possible, do a lot of fundraising through the opportunities that doing the Fitzy thing with friends and with my brother and college pals has opened up opportunities to work with former players who have foundations, like Joe Andruzzi and Matt Light. They've welcomed me into their fold and had me do stuff for them, which is great. So emceeing is probably like my truest love. If I could just spend the rest of my days as a, people always say like, do you have like one thing you want to do? Like, I would love to be the next Tom Bergeron. Yeah. Tom Bergeron.
He's from here.
Right? From here. The People Are Talking was his first show, and they did local shows, then elevated and became a big national thing. And I also get I get to do the stuff for the Patriots, which is a blast. So my game day stuff for them now entails sort of like working the lots, going around talking to people, just being a fan of the Foxborough faithful. And then I go in the stadium and I do all the jester on the Jumbotron stuff, giving away things to people, doing little game shows that are pre-taped and run on the Jumbotron in the game. You'll never know that you need to watch out for your ear hair or need a nose hair trim until you see yourself on like 8K on the world's largest flat screen. You're like, well, probably could have done a little more edging on that one, guy. And I get to do that, and I do the live talk show in the stadium for fans, and that's so fun. It's so fun because, you get a chance to like talk to some of these players, and at first they're literally like, oh, is this that guy from YouTube? That guy, like the obsessive, like that Tom Brady sycophant. Ew. And then you do a show, and then at the end, like, I'll never forget a dear friend, this woman, Trish Kennedy, whose company she used to run was called Zooty. You saw their name behind Belichick and Brady for years as a big team sponsor. Yeah. She brought me aboard years ago after Super Bowl 51 to host a party for her at the stadium. And it was a Super Bowl 51 celebration. And so it was dinner and drinks with former players and a lot of her business friends. And then she hired or made donations to the charities of however it worked out, Amendola, Gronk, Duron Harmon, and James White. And I did a 1-hour Q&A with them for the fans. And I had never met any of them before. And so I was just riffing, telling stories, culling lines from some of my tweets and videos, and then using them live on stage, getting big laughs. And it went great. And then at the end, Gronk came up to me, Duron Harmon, they all said nice things. But I remember Amendola was like, hey, man, thanks a lot for doing this. Like, we were all really nervous about doing this because we thought this was going to suck. You made this fun. I was like, oh, man. A, Danny Amendola, thanks for saying that. B, you are so fucking handsome. I can't stop looking at you. You're just perfect.
Amendola, good guy.
Good dude. He had his clapback with Belichick.
The roast.
Yeah.
Belichick, he came.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll give him a pass.
He gets a pass. He was clutch. I mean.
Yeah, he was clutch. He was clutch and kind to you, at least.
Yes.
So we'll give him.
He gets a pass. He gets a pass in my heart. Yeah. But doing those things, and I had a chance to interview last season. We had some Patriots definitely put an emphasis on making sure there were good guests for all the halftime shows and pregame shows because the fans are starting to go, what are we doing here? So I got to Corey Dillon and Malcolm Butler, and they were all just and when they come up afterwards and they say hey, thank you, and you're like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
You're Corey Dillon.
Right.
You scored 20 touchdowns in 2004. You helped win a Super Bowl. You're Malcolm Butler. You saved New England when we had ice dams everywhere and we were all trapped in our homes.
Right. I mean, I guess if you think about it, and absolutely no disrespect to journalists, but an athlete's interaction, right?
That's fine.
Yeah. Is mostly with a beat reporter, right? Whose job is just cover the beat. What's kind of the X's and O's of the day, of the week, of the season. And, so that's probably for a lot of these guys what they're doing, right? They're talking to guys who are just asking hey, the game yesterday, this happened, talk about it. And there's no personality in that, right? There's not a lot of joy beyond kind of, and again, not
interpersonal engagement.
None of that,
because
right?
it's supposed to be on the record, and and I've come to the same way that it's been nice to see legit mainstream media, beat people, etc., who used to hold me at least a Heisman's arm length and be like, oh, this guy, oh, this hack, Jesus, I got to deal with this guy again. Over time, they've seen the work that I do, the value that there is in that work, but also the fact that I'm good at it, but I know my game the same way they do when they're keyboard warrioring their way to a story or a recap or a column. I'm just doing it in a different contemporary form. And that's great. But to your point, yes, the idea that I can actually have I can present my story, but with a real humanity and maybe some heart and humor as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think these athletes, they want to look good too, right? They want to have fun as well, and I'm sure they're where their arena is the sports itself. The interview's probably uncomfortable, right? And so they're worried about themselves, how they come off. And so to have someone come here, cut the tension, make them laugh, make them seem interesting, I can only imagine that they're, that's what they want to be doing. Not someone who's trying to hey, you dropped that pass on 3rd and 11 last week. Why do you suck so bad, right? That's a.
What do you have to say to your fans?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. Fuck off. I don't know. You try and do this.
I'm trying hard.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can. I'm a person. People forget.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, there are plenty of things that gall me or offend me more, but is there anything stupider than when people say from the stands, you're passionate about it, you care. You think you care more about the game that you're betting on or that you're rooting for or that you're obsessed over and devoted to than the players who play.
Yeah.
So people that yell nasty ass shit at players from the stands or now who tweet at them, send death threats, crawl into their DMs, call them bums, use racial slurs, screw all of you.
Yeah.
These are people too.
Yeah.
They have moms, they have dads, they pay taxes.
Yeah.
They sit down when they poop probably. They do all the same things we do.
Right.
And to try to make going out of your way to try to make someone else feel worse about their day or their misgivings is just the reverse of how I see all humanity operating. It's the pits.
They're also 23 years old, right? So you got a guy who's 10 beers deep, mad about something else, screaming down at a kid, right? You're talking about a kid. It just never made sense to me.
Yeah, this is like most of them just can now. I mean, they've had it before, but like they can just now legally buy booze. They're still not old enough to rent a freaking car.
Yeah.
They can just barely leave the country, and you're telling them, that they suck. They they should die. But like, I'm like, what is wrong? I've to this day, like 50 years young at this moment. I know I don't look it. Thanks, Jack. But like I've never been in a fist fight. I've talked.
Don't start now.
Now's not the time to start. I know. But the only time I ever have even come close has been at games where I've heard people just yelling obscene things, and I've just turned around and said, like, can you listen to yourself?
Yeah.
This, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you sound like an asshole. Like,
it's so true.
Be better. And then it's like, oh yeah, you want me to be better? Like, this isn't how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
But just like I couldn't not, pardon my double negative, and then if you say that, they're like, why? What do you? Oh, now you're correcting my grandma?
Yeah.
Like, no, I just couldn't not say something, guy. All right. Have a nice day.
I mean, there are people, right? Like just like Tasmanian devils of just misery.
Yeah.
And they're sending it out there, and some reason you get caught up in it. So, and then
The 6 Super Bowls didn't help.
no, exactly. I'm glad. I am happy to hear that the players, I think, do appreciate that. I think that's good. I think more people like you in the space. I think that's a good thing, right? I think that there's not enough kind of humor in a lot of this stuff. I think the connection. There's people who I think are trying to make jokes about players, about the teams, and there's a lot of like mockery, and I don't see quite as much people coming in and bringing the players and the teams along with the jokes, right? And along, and I think that, I think that what you're doing is really, really good.
Thank you. Hey, Player X, when you did this, here's how we were feeling.
Yeah.
When you were about to make this interception, most of us were at home praying to God or shitting our pants or making deals with the devil or whatever. And just like sharing those parallel experiences is interesting to a lot of the players.
Yeah.
And it humanizes it
Yeah.
to a certain degree. And it sometimes, players don't want to be the butt of your joke. Like, don't use my celebrity, my accomplishment, my achievement or status to elevate you. They don't want to be a ladder for you.
Yep.
And then sometimes you have to feel out if you can have some barbs and a good give and take.
Right. You got to earn them though, right?
Yeah, it was one super nervous one time. It was 2019. I was my second year working for the Patriots doing the pregame shows. And I think it was a Thursday night game. And Rodney Harrison was in town. Yeah. And he was our pregame guest. And, here he's a very imposing figure. You know how tough he was when he played. Good looking guy. And the crowd was a couple hundred people gathered in this corner of the Putnam Club. They were psyched to have him. And Rodney Harrison was, I was, a little tart-tongued when I do these things and sharp and quick-witted. And Rodney Harrison was like, man, you guys, you really like this guy, this joker over here hosting this little show right here? And I turned to Rodney Harrison and I said, ooh, Rodney, don't come after me like you did Trent Green's knees. Side note for the audience, he took out the knees of Trent Green in 1999 preseason, which is what enabled Kurt Warner to take over for the Rams and become Grocery Boy, the Super Bowl champion. And I always got him the label of a dirty player.
Yeah.
And the audience laughed and then went, ooh, and he looked at me and he goes, all right, I see you. That was pretty funny.
All right.
And I that could have gone one of two ways.
I thought it was going to go the other way.
F you, like he's going to get up and like take me out. But then the fact that I knew the football and I could make a lighthearted moment, and then he's like, all right, and then he turned, he's like, okay, and he turned to the crowd, so he's like, all right, I see why you like this guy. And then I was like, thanks.
Yeah.
And that same season, I was late coming in for the show, and I ran in from the parking lot because I was filming a video with some fans. And I said, hey, everybody, welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your old pal, Nick Fitzy Stevens. Sorry, I probably seem pretty amped up. Instead of saying like I just ran in here from the parking lot, I said, oh, hey, I was at a party at Patrick Chung's house in New Hampshire. That week prior, he had been busted with cocaine at his New Hampshire house. So gets a quick laugh, like a couple too soons, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We go through the whole show. And at the end, someone goes, hey, Fitzy, come here. I'd like you to meet Patrick Chung's mom and dad.
Oh, jeez. Oh boy. Well,
that happens.
Hey.
You just have to be ready for those moments.
yeah, that's good.
It's part of the fun.
All right. I think I got to ask you one question, one food question. I think we can wrap up. This has been wonderful. I think we've already probably gone over time. But I know you're a Cape Cod guy. Mm-hmm. You like the Cape. I like the Cape.
Born and raised. My dad's primary business, aside from the theater and trying to bang all of his secretaries was, and gambling, was published an ad specialties book.
Uh-huh.
So, we're a family of unrecognized firsts. I was one of the first people to be doing short-form internet entertainment, especially around Boston. And my dad, before Groupon and before the age of online discounts and advertising, published this little book that was always full of, like, tear it out, like, go to the Lobster Boat, present this coupon before dinner and free cocktails for everyone, or like buy one entree, get one free. So the Cape is in my veins forever.
I love it.
Nothing like, is there anything better than when you go over the Sagamore or the Bourne Bridge and just that first, like,
Yeah.
oh, there went my problems.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
right.
It's the best.
I feel the same way. So my question is, you're on the Cape, anywhere, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You have one meal. It's August. It's a hot night. What are you ordering?
Shit. All right, gonna have to be. I love a good fish sandwich, big time. And there's a couple places on the Cape. The Cape Cod Reuben has become a thing.
Yeah.
You ever had one
Yeah.
of those? Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
They're good.
They're great. Could be a potential. It would make the final tribal council if I were doing like an elimination for like my favorite sandwich. But if I'm gonna have one Cape Cod meal to hold me over until the next time I get to Cape Cod or forever, I have to go to a great clam bar. I'll go with one of the All Stars. I'll go to Arnold's in Eastham.
Yep.
And it's gonna have to get onion rings, fried clams, fried scallops, and then when the girl who probably just turned 17 and gives you the thing, here you go, sir, thanks, your number's 83, and you take that little like buzzing thing that looks like it's also like a spirit tracker from Ghostbusters, and you go sit in the back and you wait for it. Right there in the middle of Arnold's, they have like a little end of a boat that sticks out. That's the raw bar.
Yep.
Going over there, and I'm gonna get for me and my wife, I'm gonna get a dozen Wellfleet oysters, maybe a couple of shrimp cocktail for the kids, an ice cold beer, whatever's local and fresh, and yeah, oysters, cold beer, those perfect shoestring, like those thin, the onion rings. I don't like a big bready onion ring. The stack yay high.
Yeah.
Stinky, salty, oil, and magnificent. The fried clams, scallops, and just live like kings. And the best part is, right down the road, another 5 minutes, the Wellfleet Drive-In.
Yeah.
So you get to have the meal of your life, and then you take the kids down there. They play mini golf and have soft serve.
Yeah.
Pull the family wagon in.
It's the best.
Open up the back, set up the chairs, pop out the cooler, get the overpriced popcorn, and you think, I can live like this forever.
That's it. My parents have a house in Wellfleet, so I'm very, very, very spoiled. They bought it recently.
See what that right is there? That's a dub.
They bought it recently, and it's been everything you've mentioned is like, yeah, I would have probably said the same thing. It's clam. I like a clam roll. I love PJs. It's not anything special, but it's just something about the nostalgia of it all. Just it takes like a 7 to a 9. Right?
Yep.
The drive-in, anything Wellfleet oyster, anything raw, anything fresh. I probably would have given the exact same answer. I might have said PJs instead of Arnold's, but I do think Arnold's is probably better. But there's that connection with me with PJs. But so I feel like that is
that's a great.
I see you. And I respect you.
I feel seen.
I do. I mean, the Cape's a big place. We picked 2 places right down the road from each other in basically the same order.
And our night ends at the same spot. Like if we had not met and had
the
chopped it up and chatted here one day, you may have just. I've met so many random people. So many people now that I have that are like dear friends of mine that I met either because they followed me on Twitter or something, or they saw YouTube videos and would come up to me at a game. like 3 or 4 guys that are truly like that have been friends for 15 years that are folks I would invite, that I would hope to see if there were the passing of a loved one, or would invite to a special family occasion, and have done so through this wild experience of intermingling theater and cinema and comedy and sports. It's amazing. It really is amazing. It really is amazing if you just, fearlessly put your best self out there, and then, just say, okay, world, have at it. But, I feel good. I feel good about it. I'm so grateful for the entire experience. I have no idea what's next. I may not even do the whole Fitzy and sports thing much longer, because I feel like there could be diminishing returns, but I feel so happy with what this has generated for me that maybe it's time to experiment and see what's next.
I love it. Well, I don't think you can make a wrong decision. I think you have your attitude is right. If Fitzy is coming to a close, I'm excited to see what's next, and I know I speak for a lot of people around here who I think will follow you into whatever weird, crazy direction or mainstream direction or anything in between, right? So, thank you so much for coming here. I really, really appreciate it, and come back anytime.
Hell yeah, go Pats.
Right. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Jack.
Don't see